Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I want to talk about something I've been noticing over the years, and obviously with the recent progress of LGBT phobic laws in Russia, obviously it's been affecting the Russian speaking side of the internet, and specifically censoring of websites, and it ended up trickling into the censoring of Wikipedia pages, which I guess it's nothing new, but at the same time, the fact that it's been going on more and specifically about gay people, obviously, it speaks volumes and it makes me very uncomfortable considering that Russia in general and Eastern Europe has a horrendous factually history when it comes to talking about LGBT people, whether gay, trans, bisexual, etc. So obviously, I grew up when it was already very difficult, and I didn't even expect the world to reach a sort of level of acceptance that we have, for instance, like in Portugal where I live, or I would feel comfortable being in Spain and stuff like that. And even then, like I think about like Brazil, how it was many years ago when I first visited, and how society was there, and I do understand Brazil still has a lot of way to go, and obviously the US is going backwards. The UK is pretty much surf island, and obviously with I guess such heavy hitters like the US and the UK and Russia, which kind of dominates the Russian speaking space, obviously, it is no surprise that obviously the internet pages get taken down, like pages in contact are censored or taken down. You can't be an LGBT activist, you can't factually exist. And back in the day, like people would speak out about the inequalities, try to raise awareness when the laws were passing in Russia, but they weren't as strict as they are now. And obviously now people just like to say that, oh, fuck Russians, like it's their fault for the war and stuff, but people don't understand that, for instance, the same gay people that stay in Russia which can't leave, they're the ones getting forgotten in all this mess. And right now they even have more laws against them and they can't factually exist. So obviously when we speak about more things which don't fall under immediate thing but are still very troublesome to discuss, I do not understand the necessity of like censoring wiki pages. I do not understand the necessity of removing LGBT categories, and specifically when it comes to speaking about figures which were either during the Soviet times or prior to that, and in general toning it down. So obviously this is nothing new. Like I remember growing up when there was a TV series about Tchaikovsky, for instance, who's gay, and Tchaikovsky, like in this day and age, is getting a lot of shit simply because he's Russian. And so we've had, for instance, people from Ukraine sort of say that we shouldn't be listening to Tchaikovsky's music, even though he was gay and oppressed, and the Russian media made a TV show where they do not even discuss his sexuality, and he was openly gay. So, not discussing his sexuality and giving him a female love interest out of thin air was obviously very problematic. And this isn't the only case. Like, for instance, I only found out very deep into my adult years that, for instance, Yesenin, which is a very, very famous Russian poet, um, was bisexual, and I think it was mentioned on his wiki page for maybe a few years, every once in a while, and recently that has been taken down. And the one that spoke to me was the director Eisenstein. I was just reading his biography, just like wiki surfing, really. And it really spoke out to me the fact that they removed the fact that he was gay. And they mentioned that in the English a bit, but in the Russian one, obviously, it's nowhere to be found. And you can see that with modern sort of celebrities like with Renata Litvinova, who I adore. Like, for instance, you can see a brief reference to it in her personal page in Russian just because she actually came out on a TV show, so as bisexual, so obviously. But for instance, like if you look at Zemfira's, like you have some hints here and there on the English one, well, nothing on the Russian one, but then you can say, oh, but Zemfira never made it clear, and it's a sort of open secret. And then you have other people, like for instance, Roman Viktuk, who was Ukrainian, and sure, he obviously directed in the Soviet times. And this is the one I think that bothers me the most, and I have made videos about him, and in general, he is a person who influenced me very deeply as a gay man. Um, Everyone knew he was gay. I don't even understand this idea of trying to cover it up. And the fact that it was never properly on his wiki a bit before his death. No, I think after his death, that's when it started getting really washed out. And the more time passes, the more I feel like his wiki gets smaller and smaller and smaller and just gets reduced to nothing as if he never existed. And he was a very influential playwright, and he did amazing plays. And to see him completely erased is horrific, factually. Then you have Lermontov, obviously, who is probably the second most important poet after Pushkin, and you don't find mentions unless you go like very digging, and it was never on his wiki page. But then even if we discuss wiki pages, for instance, if we look at Jack Kerouac's wiki page, who is a very, very important 20th century Beat Generation writer, his bisexuality is nowhere to be seen, and he has famously been into men and women. And factually, if you read On the Road, I don't know how delusional do you have to be to not see that he's very bisexual there, but yeah. So we still have, obviously, in the West, we still have erasure, but I do feel like it's less, and obviously this is gonna be escalating and escalating with the way the US is going, the way UK is going. But it's still very weird to see that even people who I grew up with in more conservative times to be removed from Wikipedia pages, things that are so common, like fucking knowing that Viktuk is gay, just not get addressed or get completely removed, or removing the person nearly. Just makes no sense to me. I mean, I understand that it's obviously an act of homophobia, but removing it sort of like, let's remove the gay part and let's start removing the article together, is just insane. So it's quite troublesome, and obviously then I started digging around even more, like for instance Tsvetaeva, who's a famous bisexual poet, and she, for instance, she was the only one who I saw who has more than one sentence and even a quote about her bisexuality. And she was the only one I found from the top of my head, and she's like pretty much like the main sort of woman into woman author. Like, I don't think she was ever properly censored, but at the same time, like, I never really discussed her like with my parents, and my mom once gave me a book of her, so I don't know how widely known it was outside of LGBT circles, or sort of as much common knowledge like Viktuk, for instance. And then you have, for instance, towards the end of his life, like Boris Moiseev was saying that he's not gay, and that Galuba Elena was a mass hallucination. I'm taking a piss about the mass hallucination. He did not say that. More like that he was just doing gay to get a shock factor, and that is pretty much. Then he backtracked on it anyway. Obviously, you have people like Biankin and etc. And I understand that, for instance, if we're talking about people who are still in Russia and etc., they can't do anything. But when we're talking about people in the past who have obviously passed away, and people like Eisenstein, who hasn't been alive in God knows how long, it's weird that they get erased. And I feel like it's even more censorship even than in the post-Soviet times, in the zeros. And you'd find who's gay or not. Well, now it's completely impossible. Or it's really getting to the point where you're like, am I hallucinating this? And it is very worrisome, actually. And obviously the internet is getting more cleaned up and everything. People complain about DEI, which is another way of saying, like, if you're not white, cis, straight, you're pretty much shit and we're gonna hate you. I don't know, it's just been an interesting sort of couple of days, I guess, watching Elon's Nazi salutes, watching all of this descend into madness. And it's even bizarre to like choose a YouTube topic because there's so much stuff going on, but this is something I had written down for me to cover at some point. So I kind of wanted to raise awareness about this because I always talk about Russian speaking issues. So yeah, so this is pretty much what I wanted to say. It's very bizarre that the LGBT category is no longer there under the LGBT people, and it's becoming more of an erasure, and there's nothing we can really do about it. So yeah, very optimistic. I wanted to say thank you very much for watching. Yeah, if you're a Russian speaker and you have any fucking power to start editing those wiki pages and you won't get put in jail or whatever, you won't get in trouble for it, please fucking go for it. I'll fucking send you a list of resources of who's gay and who's not and where you need to correct it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate all the love, inputs and everything. Feel free to drop a comment if you want to spread this to your friends, discuss something about this, please feel free, I always appreciate it. Feel free to subscribe, also really appreciate it. Feel free to watch more videos, and once again, thank you very much. Everything is really gloomy. Personally, I'm doing fine, but it scares me when I look out of the window and I see the world. So thank you very much.